Commissioner, come up. Commissioner. Yay, Kelly.
Well, I wonder what we're all here for. There is, and you know, I mean, this has been a tough issue. I'll be honest with you. There is a proposed reuse of the correction center on Kaley for a homeless shelter. All right. No decisions have been made yet. All right. There is a feasibility study that is being done on the use of the building. So nothing has been decided yet, all right?
If you could speak out a little bit.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Nobody usually accuses me of being quiet. So no decisions have been made on the use of the building yet. There's a feasibility study being done to see if it's going to even be feasible to use it for the renovation. But it is the old work release center on Kaley. It is a county building. There would have to be an agreement between Orange County and the city of Orlando to be able to use that. And there would have to be a conditional use process, which means that you would have to have a process go through numerous public meetings for this use. I'd like to ask Lisa Portelli from the mayor's office, who's actually been working on this proposal, because she'll have answers on this that I don't. So Lisa, would you come up, please? And I was kind of hoping to have Officer Travis Lamont, because people have had questions about the OPD outreach unit. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it, but I would like to have him at some point in time come and speak with you about a lot of the outreach that they're doing with the Orlando Police Department for homeless services. They actually have a whole unit now that works with homeless outreach. So this is something that's been a problem in this area and downtown and in this area. So Lisa, could you tell us a little bit about what's going on at the facility and what the proposal is?
Sure. All right. I was actually just thinking I was taking questions, but if I start from the top, then it's the need. We've had a 37% increase in unsheltered homelessness.
I'm sorry, if you could speak up.
I'm not going to be able to talk much longer than this. I was sick all last week. I'll do my darndest, and I'm the youngest of five, usually I can project. We've had a 37% increase throughout Orange County in homelessness over the last couple of years. It's pandemic, it's affordable housing. That's primarily affordable housing. Affordable, accessible, supportive, all of that. We had to do something. City Commission has directed the use of, I think $57 million. It's basically COVID money. To make it simple, you can get the detail, for our two most pressing issues, affordable housing and homelessness. About $30 million of that money is being directed toward homeless services, capital funding toward two goals. To reduce the presence of the unsheltered on the streets of Orlando, and to make sure, this was always hard to say, that no woman or child would spend the nights on the streets of Orlando. And that happens a lot. And a lot of what this shelter would serve would be the adult female and adult male population. Women who chronically homeless women who are out on the streets, 75% of them have been assaulted in some way, shape, or form. So we've got to address it. And let's all face it, nobody wants a city that looks like a lot of our West Coast cities, right? Very sorry for that, right? This is our shared public space, but we don't want that. Then you've heard a lot about the state law. So we were trying to resolve this. We're working on these other projects, helping the existing organizations expand their capacity to serve unsheltered and do the things. And that's the coalition, the rescue mission, the Salvation Army. They're doing great work.
At least I'll give you a voice a break and talk a little bit about the state law, which is what's precipitating a lot of this.
Yes, so we're doing that, and then state law kicks in.
Yes, we get unfortunately a lot of unfunded mandates from the state of Florida. So there is now a law from the state of Florida that if anybody is on any public property in the city of Orlando, and we do not get them out of the space,
overnight
camping, the city of Orlando can be sued. I've had some people say, well, let's just get sued. These are not frivolous lawsuits. These are usually very expensive, and wouldn't we rather be spending money on services than lawsuits and paying people who are trying to sue us for this? We've already had complaints about the camping ordinance, and we're in a difficult situation because we do not have enough bed space. So it is a perfect storm of trying to solve a problem, being given more of a problem by the legislature, and being given no money to solve the problem. All right? It's a tough situation to be in. Yes, ma'am.
There is a plan. We're gonna just talk first and then have your chairman, facilitate questions, but let me just get a few things out that maybe could circumvent some of that or get you ahead of that. So the last of those dollars, we were looking for a site. It is to what we are proposing, and nothing is confirmed. The first confirmation of this has to go to City Council, and that's the lease between Orange County and the City of Orlando, allowing us to use that building. That cannot get done today because they're in there assessing the facility to see how badly it needs to be renovated. It's been vacant for a long time. It's about a 40-year-old building. It needs extensive renovation. If that runs into millions and millions and millions of dollars, all bets are off right there. We won't be able to go forward. We expect that to be done no later than March 30th. Then we will know, and you will hear, March 30th is the assessment. That's the assessing the building. So we will put that out to the community right away. We've gotten back our number. Here's what it's going to cost. We're going to go forward and do more community outreach. It's not fair to say that it hasn't started, because it has. Orlando.gov/shelter is the web page to get the facts about the project. And on that page, you can sign up to get email updates. Thank you. About 300 of you have done that, signed up to get those updates. We sent out an email update last week, and there's another one going out, and we're adding a frequently asked questions section to that page too. So there's that. And then the commissioner and I have been attending regular neighborhood association meetings to start addressing questions. But formal outreach and specific and more meetings like this will go on after we know whether we can use the building or not. But we're not even there yet, and then we'll get there. What does our community need? What we're proposing for that site, and we need multiple shelters like this throughout the Tri-County area. It's very important that we're actively engaged in trying to get Orange County, Seminole County, Osceola, and others. We need a shelter that's unique to any shelter that's in our community right now. And that's a shelter that some of them do some of these things, but not a single one of them does all of it. So this would serve adults only, and it's a shelter that is open 24 hours a day, which means you don't have to leave at 8 o'clock in the morning. City of Orlando, we are all used to, we have two fabulous shelters. Great respect, donate. The two that operate, Salvation Army and the Rescue Mission, are wonderful, but both of them operate with an older model that brings in 80 people a night and has them discharged every morning at 7 in the morning. So they're out on the streets of downtown. This shelter would not force people to leave every morning. It's a 24-hour open access shelter. You're bringing people in through incentives. 3 meals a day are served, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. When you're up from your sleeping area, you can remain on site. In that building, there's inner courtyard space, and there's a whole cafeteria space. When people come to the building, they would be looking at a variety of models, and I ran one up in Jacksonville. They are screened. First of all, I'll be real basic here. You're given a big tub that says, this is all you can bring in here. No drugs, no weapons. Maybe your blanket and pillow could go on top of it if you have that, but this is all you're coming in here with, and you're going through a metal detector. If you don't have an ID, fine, but we're gonna give you a facility ID. Most people have an ID, but it is a barrier to getting into some of our shelters. They lose it, it gets stolen, they don't have it. I just got off the bus, I lost it. So we want you to be able to come in without that ID, but we're gonna know who's on property, right? So you're coming through a metal detector, you've been screened, no drugs, we're looking through that stuff. We could come through the facility at any time with the drug dogs or otherwise. There's 24/7 security on site. Always, 2 security on site all the time. What will happen is the City of Orlando won't run this shelter. we would do a request for proposals to an experienced service provider. So it'd be a competitive bid process and ask one of them to come in and run it. But we will put criteria in that request for proposals that says, if you bid to run this shelter, here's the things we expect you to do. And what we're adding to that is a lot of the comments that are being written to us about what you want, taking all that into consideration, like what else can we do? That's your place, to get things put in writing, like this is how we want it is operated. So I'm trying to, the storage is another important piece of that for people. It's a huge barrier today. So if you come walking up with the cart, that you see people pushing around or a lot of stuff, we have outside storage, and you put that stuff in the outside storage. You can access it, for example, at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. We're gonna have someone out there, so when you come out, you can get to your
Can they
stuff.
put weapons and drugs in the storage and come and
Yeah.
collect later? Oh, good. Are you sure?
But-
She better speak.
Well, would that be my priority? Right, I can send drug sniffing dogs to check on that. It would be extremely impossible to do metal detection or to search all of that. But if you're not bringing it in my facility, Florida is an open carry state. Like that's not, they could be walking right now. Like my priority is to get you in, off the streets of Orlando, accessing services and into a safe facility. That's the primary goal here. That storage is so that you have a place to leave your stuff so tomorrow you can go do the things you need to do. And you're not treating
Hey, let them speak. This is the first time we've actually heard them, so let's not turn them away. I'm happy, thank you for being here. Let them speak.
Well, you have to talk facts. You can't sit there and just say stuff that they.
Well, this is the first chance we got to actually hear them. I'm totally with you, trust me. But let's
talk
let them
facts,
speak.
and then we can all think about this before spewing lies. What we do.
Well, let's
Trust me, I'm with you.
let's not talk live, let's listen, we're gonna get to the Q&A, but once again,
I think that there was some confusion about whether about leaving or not.
Okay.
I think that was the confusion, that they would be required to leave, and that's not the case. They
Right.
can
and some of the questions, I'm gonna, hear me out, some of the questions that were filled with me before you got here was, taxpayer dollars, is that gonna fund us for each year? Hold on to that answer, and then when the people don't wanna go there after they're brought there, or they're there, now they wonder, in the Wadeview Park, 'cause I overlook Wadeview Park. We can't get them out there because if they're sitting like, I'm gonna tell a quick story. There's a family that wanted to come over the other day that rented the pavilion through the city, and the homeless guy was very rude and profanities. I talked to him afterwards, he's like, I would never go to a homeless shelter. That's his priority. So what do we do when these people do come in our area and they're not being taken out of a park because there won't be a process?
Yeah,
So let her answer those two
Right,
questions.
no, I mean, on that one, it's like, we have to look at our community. I don't have, an exact answer to what someone's gonna do, except that it happens every day right now. At the rescue mission, at the Salvation Army, people are turned away every single day. From 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., they do intake, and people are turned away every single day. And they're in a long line, and the line ends like tonight, and that's it, you're out. So if you drive, if you drive, how far, we're a mile. If you drive a mile into College Park, would you see them? I don't know. Go see. Right? Go see. I don't. All my, yeah, do it yourself. Like, I'm not gonna try to answer that except to tell you to go look around our existing shelters and go a mile away after intake closes. And that's today, that's the reality of that today. But that's, so they to count, what is the motivation, right? But
And so I'm gonna put it in, but just one last question. So when we do have so many people do come,
If you could stand up, Scott.
when we have so many, thank you, sir. When we have so many people that do come here and they come in their parks, are we going to, if we do, and that's it, if we see crime going up, how are we gonna combat that with law officers?
right.
Well, and that's the thing, y'all. I mean, a lot of you probably haven't come to a neighborhood meeting before. Corporal Rosado and I do the crime stats for every single neighborhood in my district. We review them every single month. We know where there's crime happening, and we know where there are issues. We do not want this to become a problem. I am committed to SoDo, and I wanted the neighborhood improvement district when I got this area in my district. let's just say it wasn't the most desirable part of town. It was witch shops and it was a hot mess, okay? So we've gotten the, you know, the SoDo Main Street going. I want this to be a great area. I want your neighborhoods to be successful. I don't want to screw things up, all right? As your commissioner,
Space down, Scott.
Octavian?
Yeah.
Waiting my turn.
So, you had your hand up earlier, so.
and I'm just saying that it is my hope that this could be a solution to some of the problems that you are experiencing. I know not everybody's going to agree with that, but I need you to understand that's where I'm coming from. I don't want to do something bad to you, all
Where
right?
do you live?
I live in Colonial Town.
Would you approve of the same facility within a block of your home?
Let me tell
Would you approve the same facility within walking distance or blocks from your home?
Are you gonna let me answer the question?
Yes, you can
Okay.
answer.
All right, I actually have a little bit of experience with this situation because when I was president of the Colonial Town neighborhood, they want, the self-storage was gonna become Covenant House. They wanted to move right in my neighborhood. The problem that I had with Covenant House, because we did some research on them, was that they did not run a very tight facility. They allowed drugs. They were trafficking those kids, and it was a huge problem where it was located on Orange Avenue. So we were opposed to it. Years later, but we still had a problem with working girls and kids that were being trafficked all up and down Mills Avenue where I live. I had to kick the hookers off my carport when I first moved in, all right? I've experienced this. So what we did was, because we had a large problem with youth that were being trafficked, we did the Zebra Coalition. Now granted, that is not an overnight shelter, but they do have day services and they do placement. Since the Zebra Coalition has located in my neighborhood, we have had a large decrease. I'm not going to say 100%, but a big decrease in the amount of streetwalkers and everything else that's happening along Mills Avenue. So the facility has helped to decrease the bad things that people didn't like recently, all right? So yes, I have had an experience, and that's been my personal experience in my own neighborhood.
I have 5 people that have had their hands up. The young lady in the back with the baby
Two
first.
questions, because you mentioned trafficking.
Yes.
To that point, we have the train and the highway and Orange Avenue. So how does, that seems like a prime trafficking situation for someone to be able to put someone on a train, get on and off a highway easily. So it seems like that's the same concern that you would have for this shelter location.
When you have a properly run facility that is going to be safe and
But we don't-
secure.
we don't-
That's absolutely untrue.
The second question in the back, please.
Yeah, I had someone in a tent, but right beside my yard. Eddie Rosado and his team were super helpful, so thank you for getting rid of them. But they were sleeping there overnight. I would consider that an encampment because they're in a tent. What's the difference between someone living in a tent in someone's backyard versus moving from bench to bench in Wadeview Park?
Public property.
So then,
Yeah.
is it the same, are you facing the same issue? Because I don't see encampment as big of an issue versus wandering as the issue.
Right, the specific ordinance of the city of Orlando, the state law is designated enforcement of a specific ordinance regarding people sleeping on public property. And that ordinance for the city of Orlando governs overnight camping. So you have to be camping overnight on
Sleeping.
public property.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Right, good.
Yeah.
So you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you.
Hello. I have a one pager here, all right? Just bear with me. Hello, with the help of another family in this room, my wife and I started Stop SoDo Shelter movement as a way to inform our neighbors about what an open access, low barrier shelter would mean to our surrounding communities. All the information on our site was well sourced and shared in good faith. Since then, we have continued learning from people who have experienced homelessness, social workers, career homeless service providers, and boots on the ground law enforcement officers about effective policies that both helps break the cycle of homelessness and keeps our cherished neighborhoods safe. We will be updating our website with overwhelming amount of research and experience soon. As I look around this room, I see elected officials, professionals, parents, retired folks who care deeply about our shared neighborhood. I'm hoping that this is a civil, transparent, and productive discussion about how we can help the homeless population and also prioritize community safety. I'd like to go on record offering City Commissioner this binder of over 1,300 petition submissions, and they still come in. And they still come in at 20 to 40 per day of people who live in SoDo and disagree with the efficacy of this Kaley shelter. Included are their full names, their contact information, their address, and very compelling comments about why this open access, excuse me, I'm nervous, low barrier shelter is not effective policy. There's an interlocal agreement which can be downloaded on our website where there's very specific terminology. It says the city must reach community consensus, and this has been negotiated as a package arrangement. All conditions must be honored as noted. Commissioner Sheehan, please open the line of communication with our group. I truly believe that together we can introduce policy that will actually help us all.
And I would like to say that I have been at neighborhood meetings, we've heard at city council, we've responded to the questions, and I would request though that you take that to the city clerk because I don't want to be a custodian of record. All right, so I'm going to ask you, Octavian, if you will take that to the city clerk's office, and if you could drop it off at that, that'd be great.
So let me point it to you, the young lady in the black shirt, right here, you're first, and then your next young lady.
Hi, my name is Linda Wyden. You made a comment that you screen for guns and so forth before they go into the shelter. Are you screening for mental illness? Are you screening for that? You cannot screen for that. My husband works, like you said, on the corner of Orange and Michigan. He was assaulted inside a business where he was working. How are you going to stop that? They are not going to stay at that facility. Most of them want to maybe go in and get something to eat. They're all going to be back out.
Yep.
Yeah. You can't control. You cannot control what we have a problem with now. How are you going to control what the future is going to have? Right. So next thing, we already have the juvenile detention center. Helicopters. We already have the justice center over there for the juveniles. We have Great Oaks Village over there. How much more do you want to put on our area of SoDo? Our area is just now starting to be a beautiful place.
Yes.
Don't take away from it. Finally, I feel like I can go to Target. I can go to the local restaurants, the family-owned business and so forth. I want to be able to continue to do that with my grandchildren. There is a place over off of Colonial. Might be in your neighborhood here. That is the Colonial Promenade Center. That is so empty. You talked on about bringing services for all these people in one place. That's the perfect place. There are no neighborhoods right there. There's Baldwin Park down there. Don't do that to our neighborhood. I have a video of my husband being assaulted. I don't want to have to worry every day when he's going into a family business, to work, that he's going to be assaulted.
I don't want anyone getting assaulted.
Well, how are you going to stop this? It can't be handled now.
And what you're creating is an indigent motel. That's basically, that's it. It's
And
a
then
free,
you say about children,
growing,
families.
revolving, 24/7 motel with drugs, guns,
Let me say this too.
incarcerated.
Talk
Don,
about
let her
children
finish
and
again, then we'll get
families.
to you.
Talk about the children and the families, the women and the children. You're letting people go into shelters that have no ID. You don't know whether they're sexual predators or anything, deviants or whatever. You're talking about them being protected? You're not protecting them by letting anybody go in there. You want to create a shelter just for women and children? Have at it. But to let anybody go in there, that's a problem.
All right, I understand. I understand.
Thank you, young lady right there, probably.
I just want to ask a question. First of all, the entity that took over for Covenant House, how many beds were in that facility?
There's no beds in.
It's just a center. How many? What's their intake probably?
Yes, it's intake. I don't know what their numbers are.
All right, but I'm just curious why a 300-bed facility is being concentrated so much in one location.
Well,
More than one
Why?
district.
That
More
number
than
is
multiple,
not
possibly
accurate.
three.
That number is
Okay,
inaccurate.
who's doing the feasibility study? What's the entity that is doing the feasibility?
They are assessing the building, so they don't know anything about that question either. They're totally.
What is that
It's Borelli
entity's
and
name?
Associates. Borelli and Associates.
Who?
Borelli and Associates.
Borelli and Associates.
Contracted with to look at the AC, the roof, the heating, the plumbing, so they're not.
No, I understand as far as the
Just an
commercial
existing
process
contractor that's
is concerned. One follow-up.
But it is not-
When we're talking about the safety of a 300-plus bed facility, we can't even get people to stop speeding on Miller Street due to lack of a police presence. So what is going to happen? What's the police response going to be when we have 300 to 500 homeless people in a 24/7 roving hotel? I mean, her husband or whomever was assaulted in broad daylight. I mean, it's a mess, y'all.
It's not a right.
So there's
Okay.
5 models in the state of Florida that you could go look at. Camille's house in Miami, Pinellas Safe Harbor in Pinellas.
90 beds.
Gainesville, there's another one, Jacksonville, Daytona.
Yes.
My only point is
300
that
beds.
during the day, 60 to 70% of the people remain on site. About half of them are
I would like
working.
to address
So, can I
exactly what
finish?
you're
Let her finish,
Yeah.
we'll get to you, put your hand
60
up.
to 70% of the people, if you walk into any of those facilities or ask the staff, they're staying there on site. About half are working. Many people are disabled or pending getting disability or or social security income or social security disability. Our homeless popping, like the rest of our community, is aging. And so people are getting into their 50s and 60s, and they don't have retirement savings accounts, and their health is deteriorating, and they have nowhere to go, and they're becoming homeless. So we're waiting for them to get disability. So a lot of people staying on site are that group also.
Which I
The only
totally
way for
understand
us
if
to
we can
stabilize-
reduce that number, that bed number.
Right,
At
that,
a
that's,
minimum.
300 is inaccurate. That should be removed.
What is
That
the
was-
number?
3 to 5. What's the number?
So, do we have, hold on, do we have a ballpark number that we can hang our hat on?
We're not yet.
Oh, not yet, okay, 30 or less. I got,
Part of the reason of that number, y'all, honestly, is because there may be on-site identification. We're maybe looking at having the actual police unit that works with homelessness working out of there. This will take up space, which will be less beds available, but it will provide services on-site, medical, and those kinds of things. That's part of the feasibility study. It's not that we're trying to hide anything, it's just trying to figure out the balance between, and this is why you have to have, some folks there, because these folks need a lot of services. So we're trying to locate the services there that can meet them where they're at.
Are you bringing,
They are here now.
I think with these offices,
I know where they are.
Yeah.
Are you bringing them in here?
well,
Are you helping them, these people?
Yeah.
A positive note, can we help these people?
Yes, the service provider who responds to the request for proposals to operate the facility will be advised that there are 26 offices and about 6 big classrooms that they could make available to partners to come in to provide services. It is the whole point. It's basic human needs to help people stay alive today and thrive. But once you're there, we want you to be able to access the things you need to move on, especially substance abuse and mental health
using your
services.
pets.
Dignity's new office will be right around the corner.
Yeah, it's across
Okay,
the
but
field.
are they in there helping these people get there, are they? You're telling me yes?
Yes.
yeah, she said yes.
That's why they're there.
These people that, no, at this facility.
The other thing that we all, I would like, personally, I would like to see is, I know a lot of people will not go into shelters without their pets. I want there to be somewhere where people can bring their pets.
So you talk about a feasibility study, is that just for the building, or is that to say it's feasible to have it here in this location? The second question is there any other locations that you're looking at for feasibility And the third is a comment that the city of Orlando is burying all the homeless for Orange County. The city of Orlando is bearing all the homeless for Orange County. So is there any other discussions in Orange County at area Lake Nona, other areas that may have more real estate, not too many people in it today, and that may be a good place to have as many people as you want? The fourth comment is you have Paramore, right, wait a minute, I gotta finish because I'm getting nowhere with. The fourth comment is you currently have Paramore, which is consolidated a lot of service. I get it, they don't want it in their backyard.
Amen.
But there's a lot of service already being provided to homeless people in that area. People hang out in that area. I serve meals in that area. So I know that that's an area where homeless people go. And so now you're gonna have 2 areas for homeless people to go. Now, I'm not saying you don't need more areas. I completely agree with that. I just don't know from a feasibility study, it's not just, is the building good enough and I gotta spend money to rehab it. Is that the right location? That's the feasibility that you should be looking at.
I would like to add something to what he said, though. I don't think we're taking on the regional. I think we're taking on a large portion of the national homeless problem.
Possibly, beautiful weather here.
Hello. A person.
I want to answer his question.
Let her answer his question.
If I could respond.
We'll get you.
So.
1, 2,
the
3, 4.
feasibility
Next.
study is only for the building.
Thank you.
I know of no feasibility study format process for assessing a location. I know many criteria. So it's cost effectiveness, pedestrian access, access to a bus lane. If you're doing families or children, which this is not, proximity to a school district and other things. But the current assessment is the building only. There are at last year's count about 2,300 people that were homeless in the 3-county area. The city of Orlando does have about 1,100 sheltered beds in the city of Orlando. So the largest number of sheltered individuals are definitely in the city of Orlando. It's where it evolved. It's the way many cities evolved. Those organizations are 30, 40, and the Salvation Army is 50 years old. But the other 1,000 unsheltered individuals are scattered throughout Seminole, Orange, and Osceola counties, east side, west side, Osceola. There are significant efforts, both on behalf of the Orange County as well as Seminole and Osceola, to begin looking at providing services for people experiencing homelessness in other areas. One of the main reasons, they're subjected to the same law we are, and they could be sued if they don't begin providing overnight accommodations for people if someone does. So they are looking. Our city commissioners, staff, we've been directed to. It's like, this is a lot of burden on the city of Orlando, but we are also at the greatest risk of being sued. We spend $4.5 million a year right now on grant funding to all the agencies serving the homeless, Dignity included. It's a fabulous organization. If we start getting sued and lose those dollars, have to shut down those shelters, it's all going to get worse. So we're really stuck. We're really stuck. Other shelters.
The lawsuits will increase, trust me, are exacerbated by their shelter.
Young lady, speak right there, yeah.
I've been patient. I would say mouth says a lot. This person met some of you, invited you to her home. I am now currently a resident of Paramore. My family has been there since 1948. Yes, we house over 1,400 homeless. What you need to understand is the $52 million that she talked about, 25 million went in December 23. There's no outcome measurement to say that it's making a difference. Once they move them out of my community, they're in my front yard, my backyard, I get no money to do increase in security to feel safe in my community. You also need to understand, has the zoning been changed yet? If it has not, you have a way to do something. And the third thing is, I've asked this question every time. Lisa knows, Patty knows, because I come to city council and I speak on these issues about the impact. The impact is your property value will decrease. One thing you guys need to understand, I started off by saying, mouth says a lot. Learn from the people in Paramore what has happened. We have went from 20,000 to 4,500. It was designed that way. I don't want it to happen to you, but if you believe in what they're saying and you're not doing your own research, it will happen to you. I just want you to understand it. Fight for what you believe in your community, your children, the elderly. It's important.
One more question. So the young lady next to her, what was your question?
What I would like to say is that I think this is a county-owned building, is my understanding, and it's been vacant. And I think it's just an easy way for Orlando and the county, I guess, to get the state off their back. And it seems to me that there is not very much creative thinking going on about what that building could be used for. It's kind of like you're talking about street people who have come from various parts of the country to be here during bad weather seasons. And you're also talking about people who have lost their jobs, can't afford their rent, old people, that perhaps you ought to think about that building differently and see if you can't do some small living arrangements, small studio apartments or something, where people who can afford or be subsidized to get them off the street, allow them to go to work and afford it. That we do. This is a question.
So to answer your question, we do that. For 1,600 units of permanent supportive housing are people who are so physically ill that they're on disability and will never be able to live independently. And we fund, and that is a program.
I'm not saying that you don't fund it. I'm talking about the use of that building in particular. It's not a very creative use. The other thing I would like to know is if that comes into fruition, how long can someone stay in that facility before they are asked to leave? And then they'll just go out into the neighborhood.
That would vary by case plan, would vary by individual. If you're not moving, answer, please, it asks for the respect, and I don't even get to finish this sentence. It is based on the individual need, based on their case plan. If you're not moving forward toward a housing plan, you could be asked to leave. Okay, so it's not a. That's where they are right now. You're asking, if I don't do it, what happens? If you keep doing what we've always done, we're gonna get what you always got. I get numerous complaints from this community regarding unsheltered people who are in your area.
So let me go around the room. You're next, you're next, you're next, you're next, and then you are, sir, and then you and you.
Okay, hi.
You're next.
Years. It's
fine.
So it wasn't so great. I've seen it build up. I've seen a lot of money come into it, and it's gotten so much better, right? I'm a mother, family, and my concern is that it's not against homeless shelters. I help the homeless. It's about the location. You're putting it near a neighborhood where children are walking their dogs. They're walking to school. They're walking home, and you're asking us to be okay with people that are in a facility that have drug addiction, because there's going to be people with drug addiction, sexual offenders, there's going to be mental illness, and my thing is that all that amount of people are not going to stay 24/7 at a facility. During the day, they're going to leave. They're going to go out. A huge portion of them are, and that's going to be Kaley, Orange Avenue, the neighborhoods, the parks. I mean, there's no way that you're going to be able to control that. I know that she spoke on that a little bit, but please hear, this is the concern. I need my son I need him to be okay. I need our kids to feel safe in the neighborhood. And believe me, I've been here a long time, and we've already dealt with issues. with people that are mentally ill,
Still
who
are.
are drug addicted. We have dealt with it, okay, and we are dealing with it. So this just coming in here, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know why we even put money into SoDo. To bring this here, I don't understand
And all I can
that.
ask you again to do is drive around. We did the UCF downtown campus, thousands of units of residential housing, the new arena. Paramore is a completely different place now than it was 20 years ago. And the Salvation Army, the Rescue Mission, and the Coalition have always been there. It's not without its conflicts, but it would never have happened if all those people didn't have places to go, to get services, to get independent. There are outcomes to our system. You can go on the Homeless Services Network, HMIS, report, I'll think of the name of it in a minute, but there is a report. Every one of our grantees are held to performance measures, performance outcomes. It's how many people did you shelter, how many people did you house, how many people are your case managing, and that is tracked through the regional Homeless Services Network. We receive millions of dollars in federal funding that support all these services, and there are performance measures for that. And that data is public and available. I know I'll never, there's nothing we can say tonight to change that sentiment. All I can do is help you try to see
So
it.
we're coming this way.
There's nothing I can say.
While we're there, just knock those two out, then we put the hands on. You're up first, sir.
Yeah, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Commissioner, he said that no agreements have been signed.
No,
Yes or no?
no, nothing's been signed yet.
That's wrong.
Well, there's an interlocal agreement that's been signed by the mayor that has to do with this. So either you don't know what you don't know the, stop. You don't know the fact, it's on the website. Either you don't know the facts or you're misleading us. Number two is a question. Is there a quid pro quo for doing this with the county to put money in the stadium? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Let her
answer it.
We all know the answer.
Let her answer it.
You know it. The memorandum of understanding that was signed between the city and county did have 4 major components to it, and this shelter was part of that agreement. But it says, begin the discussions, assess the feasibility. It authorizes us to go ahead and start looking.
Is it an
So
agreement?
Yes.
And
It's an
yes, to go
interlocal
ahead and do
agreement.
what
It's
we're
not-
doing right now.
Deal.
Right, it's to go ahead and do what we're doing right now, to pay to have the building assessed. to
Okay,
start
now answer
looking.
the second question. Is there a quid pro quo between the county and the city to fund the stadium if the city does this?
That's a question for the mayor. I was not.
No,
You were there. So, last question for this side, you, sir, yes, go ahead. I appreciate it.
No, sir. If the shelter would not go forward, other things in that agreement can go forward.
Yeah.
They're not all for one for all. No, it authorizes to pursue every one of them as they're outlined in that agreement, and the other components of it are pages. This paragraph, this shelter is 1 paragraph. Many of you are intimately familiar with it. But if next month, we realize the building is way too expensive, that does not make the whole rest of the contract null and void. I do know that for sure. So, but I don't know, when you say quid pro quo and the details of that, we do need to we'll get legal to answer that and frequently answer questions on the building.
Sir, yes.
So since this is not a done deal, what can we do to stop it? As many people have said, our neighborhoods have just gotten better, right? So now you're saying you want to make them worse. What I'm saying is, what can we do to just stop this?
But what happens?
There will be numerous opportunities for public input, all
As our community,
If it moves forward. Okay, you know what? I'm done.
Sir, you are up next, you want to go. the 626 million that's going to Kia and Camping. How do we allocate some of that money to this problem instead of just building more skyboxes? Because that's why the agreement really happened.
Can't be used
What
for
they,
this purpose.
the agreement really happened because they needed the 626 million to go to downtown, and we're being sold out as part of that agreement.
Amen.
That's what's happening.
Tourist development tax dollars, TDT funding cannot be used for this project of the D services. It can only be used for things related to accelerating our tourism industry.
But because of approving that and needing that money, that's why this was part of that agreement that we have to do, and that's why it was dropped in our lap, and so it's having to deal with it. Not because it's the best location, not because this was researched, it's because it was in the agreement that made these things happen and got the money to downtown.
You can't do a feasibility study for a location instead of picking a building and saying that's the location. That's what needs to happen.
We were talking to the county about all of those things, and we've been looking at that building. I told you, we saw the increase years ago, the pandemic, it got worse. We had the COVID dollars that I referenced. So we were looking and looked at many other sites, and we looked at Washington Street out on the west side, so we've been looking. So the county knew that the city was interested in that building, and it became part of that document. But
I was there on November 4th when you talked about we won't get the Jaguars if we don't approve this. We won't get this if we don't approve this right now. So nobody cared about homelessness then, they cared about getting that money. So I'm glad to know that they'll still get the money even though we're gonna stop this.
That's
Yes.
right. We're gonna
Thank you for being here, first of all. Appreciate what you have, your involvement in the community. My kid played Delaney Park. I've seen you throwing out the first pitch several times. I've been here my whole life, went to Boone High School. I've served on the County Tourist Development Council, so I understand how that money works, but you can't get it for this purpose. I'm on the board of iDignity. Have a heart for the homeless problem in the community. You guys are in a very difficult position, and I understand that. Like the lady back here said, I just feel very strongly that a lot of investment has been made through the Neighborhood Improvement District. I was on the founding board of the Main Street program. We have, in an unemotional, I'm not being combative, we have made a ton of progress and a lot of investment in this community, and a lot of people have worked, not just money, hours, and I know you know that. This is all coming from a place of love of our community and all the work that we put into it, and it does feel like it would be better if we could do a feasibility on something that's not so close to schools, not so close to so many, I mean, Delaney Park is a pretty high-end residential area that's like a mile. The school's like a mile. I feel like we should at least explore alternatives, and I think that's where a lot of this is coming from. And again, appreciate you being here and listening, taking questions. So.
Thank you. Beautiful.
I'll get back over with start with these two guys and I'll call some of you.
All right, thank you. This is for Ms. Lisa. First of all, a correction, I've read the law that went into effect in January 1st in great detail. Just a correction, it does not mandate that the municipality create new beds for homeless people. It only mandates that we do not allow camping. So an analogy would be, the law mandates that I pay my property taxes. It does not mandate that the city pays my property taxes for me. So all you have to do to comply with the law is do not allow people to camp in public. You do not have to create beautiful, glorious facilities for them. And I have just a couple of days ago looked up the sex offender registry for the people who live in the vicinity of the Coalition for the Homeless in Paramore. And out of the 8 that were listed as transient, 6 out of those 8 were not convicted in Orange County. They were convicted in places as far as Wyoming, Ohio, New York. They do not live here. They are not our neighbors. They come here because of 2 reasons. We have good weather, and we have extremely generous facilities for homeless people. So they come here from all over America and the rest of Florida, and we're expected to take care of them. And they're rapists. They're sex offenders with victims under age 12, and we're expected to take care of them. And so I would look up all felons, but I can't. So I use the sex offender registry as like a proxy for all felons, but I would like to ask you, because I'm sure you know, what percentage of your clients have a history of felonies? Because according to my research, it's close to 40%. And if you have that information, I would like to know it. And if you don't, I would like to ask why you don't collect it or why you don't share it with us. And secondly, Commissioner Sheehan, I see that you brought not one but 2 police officers to protect you tonight from your constituents. And I would like to ask if our families will also receive 2 police officers to escort our children as they walk to school.
Listen, I've been respectful and I've listened.
I'm respectful too, but this is just.
Well, and
This is part of the job.
Yeah.
It really is. I know it's hard, and I commend you for being here, but this is part of the elected process, what you're here for. I know it's hard to have a bunch of people hollering at you, but we all have questions, and for you to leave now is not going to go well for how people feel about this. It's gonna get worse.
Well, I don't see how it could get worse, to be quite honest.
Well, it
You just hands up first, so go ahead and ask your question, then you too.
You, I just have a real quick question. You mentioned like on the legal side, the zoning of the building and the comprehensive land use on the building. Is that, like, is the area, the Orange County owns it, correct? So is it zoned?
It's a conditional use, it's not zoned for the snow.
So is there going to need to be a conditional use hearing?
Yes,
Is
yes.
that a public hearing?
Yes.
Because we were told that it was only going to be on consent agenda.
No, that's not true.
Who's running that? Is that Orange County or
The City of Orlando's conditional use process goes through our municipal
Planning.
planning board. So that's the board that you would speak in front of. And city council then does have to approve the minutes of the municipal planning board. So that's another opportunity for input through that process.
Has that,
And then there's a rezoning as well. There will be 2 hearings on rezoning.
so has that been applied?
No.
So if we sign up to the city's website, we'll get notifications when the application's made?
But I'm sorry, do you know how many of your clients have a history of felonies? What percentage? Do you collect that information?
We do know that nationwide and locally, the majority of their criminal records are misdemeanor. They're crimes of trespassing, urinating in public, open intoxicants, some disorderly conduct. They're primarily misdemeanors.
Well, my research is 30 to 50%.
Where did you find that? I would love to know.
I'll share it with you. I have it
The
in
other
my
thing
email.
is
I
that-
email it myself.
Okay,
And
I
will share
would
it
love
with
to
you.
know that.
I'll get your emails.
You guys can connect, okay, you're next, and then you, and then in the back. Go ahead.
I come from the community that has been the most impacted and most affected when it comes to homelessness. The city of Orlando has shoved this homeless thing, the social services in our faces for many, many years. In 2017, we had a moratorium that was rescinded. It was supposed to be no more social services in the city of Orlando District 5. The city of Orlando voted on it and took it back. So when you're talking about transparency, they told us because it's what we needed. They didn't ask us because we live in those communities where we're impacted by homelessness. What they did was the Orlando Magic wanted a spot. Advent Health gave $7 million. I want to know where that $7 million is that they used, that's supposed to have been used for homelessness. Fast forward, they added another $3 million. We still don't know what happened to that money. When you're talking about homeless, it's not that we don't want homeless in our community because everybody's a paycheck short from being homeless. We all can be affected, especially in this climate. People are losing their jobs. People are being put on the street. But every time you turn around, our communities are impacted by it. District 5 City, we have every shelter except one. That one's in Zellwood. All the social services, all of the probation and restitution and juvenile justice, most of that is in our communities. We are the ones that are impacted and affected all the time by all of this. We understand your dilemma, but there's monies being spent. We want to know where that money, we can go all the way back to 2014. I was the housing program manager for Homeless Services Network for 4.5 years, and I've seen a lot of things. We have empathy for the homeless. It's not that we don't want to help them, and we want to serve them in the best and the most effective way that we possibly can in the community. But what affects one affects us all. You can ride down West Colonial every day, you see a line of people. They sit back out on the streets. They got shopping carts, they're laying out. Even downtown near the Citrus Bowl, they're laying on the sidewalk. They're camping out. The governor puts in this new order that they cannot publicly camp. Well, they've been publicly camping in our parks for years. They've been publicly camping in our streets for years. They have been walking through our driveways, and they've been checking locks, and they have been breaking into our churches and our daycares in my community. We are affected on this every day, but then they want to tell us that's what's best for us. They don't know what's best for us because they don't live in our community. There's plenty of land and plenty of space, as you've already said, empty space, but they won't utilize that because they want to tell you what's best for where you live and not where they live. Like someone already asked, would you put this in your community? Covenant House. Some of my clients was from Covenant House. They, yes, they were streetwalkers, a lot of them, because they don't have wraparound services. It is their job, the mayor's job, both our mayors, it is their job. Session starts tomorrow. It is their job to be up in Tallahassee and lobbying for the money that we need in our community. But are they doing that? No. They'd rather put it in tourist development taxes, build more hotels, and build rec centers and everything else when we have a serious problem already in our community. Homelessness is serious business for all of us. And we should not allow them to just keep pushing their agendas on us. We elect them, we hire and fire them, and it's time to fire some people around here.
Correct one fact. The overlay district that governs the Paramore area that the residents asked for some 20 years ago is in place today.
That's not true.
We didn't ask for that.
That's
Not been
policy
rescinded.
6.1
I will
you
email it to both of you
You
tomorrow. It
rescinded.
has not
We
been
didn't ask for
rescinded.
that.
It was modified.
You're right, it was modified, but it wasn't my,
And you
we
just
said you didn't ask us.
rescind it again on when I met them on January 27th and February. You rescinded it and put 350 beds in Paramore. Again, for the women. You just rescinded. You keep
You did.
changing it and moving it.
It's not true.
So please, let's everybody pull up.
You use the old
It's in the minutes.
hotels, and you're telling us that if because somebody finally said something and y'all decided to shift it. But we already know the minute we close our eyes, you'll sneak right on in there and become a nightmare all over again.
Let's let Kathy go.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that I had heard that they were building a 6-story homeless shelter downtown for women and children. Is that correct?
An apartment complex.
Yes.
So if you were building a 6-story building for women and children, why did you kind of like make everybody think that this shelter was going to help women and children? Because this shelter would just be men.
This is men and women.
Why would you have women there if you're building a 6-story
Especially when they be on the
facility
floor.
downtown? You normally don't fix them up if you just have to.
We need more beds for women. That one's full every night.
How can you put no ID required if they can be rapists?
So my next question is, you referred to earlier when I stood up, that you had these shelters that you had looked into and investigated, and you would be modeling it after that. Well, the first shelter is Urban Rest Stop in Jacksonville. They have no beds. Okay. The second shelter you referred to was Camilla's house in Miami. The city refused to fund it and closed it down. There is no more Camilla's house.
It's not true, ma'am.
It's not true. Well, that's what the
The Urban
website
Rest
said.
Stop is co-located with the Sulzbacher Homeless Center on the exact same campus, right next to the Maxwell
that's what
House
the website
plant
said.
and the arena. I opened it, it's at 611 East
Pinellas?
Adams, and it's still there.
Pinellas State
Pinellas, I
Harbor.
was at Camilla's house 6 months ago, and took the Right Line train down. We all went and toured Camilla's house. It's huge. It's a It's still open.
Bojack's website. The next one that was mentioned was Camilla Safe Harbor. Camilla Safe Harbor is run by the police.
Yes.
It is a homeless shelter and jail diversion program. So the police run it, the police patrol it, the police take care of it. It is not an in and out facility.
It is an in and out, open 24-hour a day facility, low barriers. The Pinellas County Sheriff do run it. I don't.
It's
We would love for a
county
sheriff,
sheriff's
or
office
police
will
department to
help
respond to
homeless
a
people
proposal.
involved in the criminal justice system and controlled by the sheriff's office, per the website.
Yep.
The Grace Marketplace at Gainesville normally has a 30-day stay. You have to stay there. And they have to have people working toward finding a place. The First Step in Daytona, they have to enroll in programs, go to daily meetings. They have to save half of their money from their job to provide for housing when they get out. The other thing I noticed in those last three, Camillus, Grace, and First Step, where are they located? They are located next to airports. They're located next to water treatment facilities. They're located next to jails, juvenile detention centers. They have rivers blocking them off from any residential area. So that is not what we have here. We are 200 feet from some of the nice new condos that they built.
No hospital.
Thank you.
One of the things I just want to urge you to consider is that what you're doing is not working. It hasn't worked in years. I work in one of the biggest buildings downtown, and there's not one person in my building who has stepped foot outside the footprints because of the homeless problem. That did not exist prior to 2021, and it increased because of the services that were increased. So I urge you to contemplate the possibility, like LA has found, when you spend more and more money providing more and more services, more people come to get the services. I urge you to consider that possibility, because the argument I hear time and time again is, well, these people don't have a bed. Perhaps they're coming because we have more beds than anyone else, and you know that to be true because you talked about bed numbers. Now, the one question I have, I just urge you to think about that possibility, because I think that's what's happening. What the question I have for you is, and I would ask you to just be clear and direct on this point. There's not an MOU. There's not a memorandum of understanding. There's an agreement, an interlocal agreement signed between the city and the county. The county agreed to release $626 million to the city to fund the stadium. That absolutely happened. The quid pro quo was that you could look at getting the housing shelter, and it's true that it has contingencies. But for terms of economic feasibility, it's charging $1 a month for the dormitory facilities. That's economically feasible. So be clear with us when you say these things. Do not attempt to hide the ball. The question I have, Commissioner Sheehan, is when the interlocal agreement was negotiated and when you voted to approve it, why didn't you negotiate for the county to do its share? Because the county has, what, 60 beds and we have 1,100? Why didn't the city commission negotiate for the county to do something? That's the question.
I can't answer that. I was not privy to the negotiations.
You were there. Why did you
voted on it?
Wait, why did
You voted for it.
No, hold on. Just then, why did you vote to approve it when you know the homelessness is a problem in your city where you're a commissioner? When you have the opportunity to say, hey, county, you do your part. Why did you vote to approve that agreement?
What was your rationale?
I felt it was important to move forward with the agreement.
Thank you for your honesty. Wow. Thank you for your honesty.
Economically feasible, the terms that are used on the webpage, on this email update, are economically feasible to renovate the building. That's where that term came from. Can we afford the repairs that need to be done?
But only because you don't have to worry about the cost to lease it, because you have a $1 lease for the next 7 years. So that's why you're not worried about that side of the economic feasibility. Right, because that's as good a deal as you'll get from anybody.
What we're assessing is economic feasibility for renovation.
Right, because you don't have to worry about.
I would just like to say one thing, and that's, because I got to leave, I'm sorry. But we're starting a legal fund. If you think the $5,000 fine for not for allowing people to camp on the streets is expensive. You wait till we're done.
I really appreciate Commissioner Sheehan coming, and like you, I've lived downtown for a very long time. I've lived downtown in different parts for 35 years. 30 years in this community, and I want to give you a brief, just kind of speak for some of the people that being so close to the schools is my number one concern. Our community was the first districted K-8 school, and that's because the parents in this area asked OCPS to do that when they were building the new elementary school. And because of all the volunteer hours, all the commitments, we asked the school all the time, what do you need? How can we help you? I mean, I'm talking everybody. And we're a very diversified group of people. It's 34 to 37% free and reduced lunch. It's fluctuated that the entire time. And we did so much work with them and spent, I'm telling you, I was a full-time volunteer for OCPS at those schools, Boone and Blankner. And we helped them, we helped support the faculty, the teachers, and they worked so hard. And that's what our community has done. We've always said, what do you need? What do you need? You need this, you need that. They started foundations at the school. They had 22,000 volunteer hours at Blankner one year, and we won an award for being the biggest PTA volunteer hours that year. And I'm just telling you that because of the work done there, we rivaled test score-wise Domrick, which is in Maitland, that was 5% free and reduced lunch. And I only talk about those stats because it was a model of everybody in the community working together, and that is going to be taken down after the OCPS, who really wasn't into it with a districted K-8 because of the funding. And they finally found funding for us, but the models, they saw those test scores, and now you have one in your district, the Audubon School. And I'm telling you, going down there, it was like pulling teeth to get an extra dime for the middle school because we were funded at an elementary school level initially. And it works. It's a K-12 campus. It's less than a mile from the place that you're talking about. That's a 10 to 15 minute walk for a grown man to come down. And it's going to be an issue. There are kids, we saw kids that used to take the city bus from Blankner that were elementary age because they wanted to stay at school for an after-school activity. So they would go sit by themselves on the bus stop. I actually flagged down a policewoman one time and said, can you sit with her? It was such a small girl that was there, and we had an after-school activity because the bus doesn't run. So you have kids early in the morning showing up near Boone High School because it starts, I think, at 7:20. So the parks start filling up with kids that are walking, that are riding bikes, that are hanging out after school. They do athletics. The track team from Boone runs, and the cross-country team runs through the neighborhood. You're not going to have police presence. We used to beg the police department and say, can you just get off Orange Avenue every now and then and drive down Delaney or Summerlin? And it didn't happen that often. We would see them on Orange Avenue, but we would not, or Michigan, but we would not see them in this area. And then we also, 2 weeks ago, I confirmed the crime statistics for this area is kind of a mixed bag. We don't get the exact crime number because Orlando Police Department and Orange County Sheriff do not combine them when they report them to us. And the reason we have all these little pockets of Orange County that are in this district, and I know you might be familiar with that, I don't know. I think most of Colonial Town's in Orlando.
I wish that Orange County would do the same level of stats that we do. It would be helpful to us to identify.
But it's not a clear picture is what I'm saying, and it's never really been. because if there's like 3 blocks that'll be Orange County that's just not been annexed into the city. So I'm just speaking for people that have put their time into our children and other people's children, trying to lift everybody up. We lift a homeless population of kids up at Boone High School. There's a food bank. There's closets for people. I mean, we do all that we can do. It's not like we are running from it. But to make the location where you've chosen within walking distance from all of these kids, I have to speak up as a mom. My kids are not going to be affected by it. They're older now. But as a mom and somebody that volunteered so much, and that the county finally saw the need and the success of the K-8 model, and it just warmed my heart so much to see that, because I know that the mountain we climbed to get it there. So I'm just asking you to please consider that, Commissioner Sheehan, when you cast your vote for anything else. It's kids, you know.
More questions because, yep. We have one last question over here. No, sir in the back. And then I know you have one, Doug, you, and then Nick. So 4 more questions. Go ahead.
Commissioner, first off, thank you so much. I know this is not an easy task to do, but I used to live in downtown Orlando, and I was very privileged and fortunate enough to live in nice sky rises in downtown. And then my wife and I got married. We're about to have our first child coming next month, and we live just down the street here in SoDo. The concern that I'm hearing, I agree with almost everybody here, is that we're not against helping homeless people. We're just, the location is just a bad idea. That's what I'm hearing. Now, I have an article here from the New York Times that they wrote about a month ago. And the headline is, regular homelessness is rising. It went up 17%. And so it's not just in Orlando, it's nationwide. The number one issue, or the number one reason why homelessness is going up, and this is something I haven't heard all night, is the why. Why are there so many homeless? Is affordable housing. And the rent is just going through the roof. Now, like I said, I'm very fortunate and very privileged that I can live in a nice property, but I know that there's a lot of people that work in hospitality making $15, $16 an hour, making ends meet, and that's why. So I see this as a short-term solution for a long-term problem. And one of the things I'm not seeing from the city commission is standing up to the developers in town, not just the city, but even the county commission. Not standing up to the developers, not standing up to the real. I got a house that's being built right across the street from me. That's gonna go for $1 million. That's, if you're a homeowner, congratulations, your property value is about to go up. But me as a renter, that's gonna jack up my rent.
Well, one of my frustrations on the city council since I've been here, has been very frustrating to me, is that there are dock stamps, the realtors pay a tax that's supposed to go into an affordable housing fund every single year. The Sadowski Fund, and they raid that fund $4 billion that they have stolen from municipalities, because that money should have come to the cities. I imagine what we could have done, because it would have gone to big cities. It would have gone to Orlando, Miami, Tampa, Jacksonville. What could we have done with $1 billion to build affordable housing? I've been fussing about that for years. If you pay any attention to city council meetings, I'm frustrated that the legislature steals the Sadowski funds, and I wish that all of you in the room would bipartisan would talk about should not be happening. That money should be for affordable housing, because that money, because the realtors were smart. They said what's going to happen is the property values are going to go up. This way, as there's more dock stamps paid, we will be able to provide affordable housing.
As elected officials, y'all should be lobbying.
We are lobbying every single session, Cynthia. That's not true. We are.
You are.
No,
you are.
we are.
Rated it. I'm going to agree with you on that.
All right.
They have rated the Sadowski Fund. But there's some other issues we could work on.
Fight a little harder.
We gave you some solutions.
I would be, but it would be helpful if they hear from some of their constituents.
Commissioner.
As well, okay?
That's on the
I'm hearing from you, all right? They should be hearing from you as well on some of these
No,
issues.
but Commissioner, that's on the state level. I understand that. Your hands are tied behind your back.
Yes.
But on the local level, every time I read the Orlando Business Journal or one of the local blogs, I see a luxury building getting built in downtown Orlando.
We're doing lots of affordable housing. I don't have the statistics.
Well, why is it every time I read it's a skyrise, that's a luxury skyrise that's getting built?
Yeah. And that is part of the problem too. They do a median income. There's no such thing as a median income, all right? And that's part of the problem with building affordable housing as well. They base it on they call it AMI. There's no such thing as an average median income. People need to be able to afford on a percentage of their income. That's what HUD does. And unfortunately, that's not what the state does, does their formats that the developers have to then go forward with it.
It's not enough. We'll post on the frequently asked questions what the city of Orlando, the number of units.
Yeah.
We have.
We will do it.
It's not enough.
It's not
Let's
enough.
start reviewing.
I think all that's super
I started
interesting
off
and
with the
important.
number one reason for the increase in homelessness is directly attributable to the high cost of housing.
I think it's.
I think all this is interesting and the homeless problem and everybody is interested in it, but as we leave tonight, I think we want to clarify literally what is the process. So everybody's upset, etc. Now let's be productive. What's the next step? Okay, you said that by March 31st, you're going to have the feasibility study, not on whether it's feasible to house it there, but whether or not it's affordable, and I don't know what those standards are. That's an interesting question. What does that mean? What is it affordable? So that's something we need to explore as well, be advised of. But the second thing is, okay, let's say that you all, and that meaning the city, right, says it's a decent deal, it's expensive, but we think it's a great idea. Okay. Now, I know when my neighbor had to put his garage up, we had to have a whole process. And I, as the neighbor, had to say I thought it was okay. And he had to say he was going to do this and that. What's the process for a gigantic program like this? There's got to be a city process that you follow every single time. What is it so that we can, instead of just bitching about it and crying over it and yelling at each other, whatever, what literally is the process? And I think we need to know that as we walk out tonight. Okay, like you mentioned zoning. So what's the order and what happens next?
To make it simple, right, to keep it to the city processes, the lease between the city and the county would have to go to city council. That would be the next step, right? We would hear from us.
How soon after the feasibility?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
We do not have a defined timeline for that at all. It's like, okay, it's affordable, however that gets defined, that's even,
But that's important to know.
Right, that's
Fair.
not written, like what's defined. But first, the lease would have to go. Then, I don't know in what order, but we have to pick a service provider, and a contract for a service provider would have to go to council to be approved. We don't know. We have to pick.
It's gotta be
zoning
zoned
first.
first.
The
zoning has to go first.
So what's the deal with the zoning? There's literally, that's a little bit my purview, okay? That is called a conditional use.
Yes.
So a conditional use, I actually like conditional uses because you can put conditions on them. It's not a by right.
But how does it work when you have a conditional use zoning?
A conditional use zoning is, you have to do the following things before you will be allowed to do this here.
Who says that?
The city council, we working with Lisa and her group would say, we will want the following things before we would.
And what?
And we would be able to enforce that on the provider.
Is that something which the neighborhood people, et cetera, would have to do?
Yes, a conditional use process is open through, and it goes to the municipal planning board. But I don't know when, all right? We don't have an idea of when. After the conditional use goes through that, it comes to the city council in minutes, but there will also be 2 readings at city council for ordinance.
But how does it work? But this isn't work. So you all say, you're the city, the big city, okay? What, if you say, yeah, sure, you get to participate, but what does that mean? What if we have 1,500 people who say, we think it's horrible for the following reasons? Can you still say we think it's fine?
Planning board.
What's that?
It is our citizen city. And your fellow citizens serve on the municipal planning board, and they have to approve that application and vote for it.
No. We all comment, everybody's upset about it, said it has very logical, good reasons, we put it in writing, etc. Can you then say, well, we still think it's a good idea?
Yeah, sure.
So what's the point? So what's the process?
I'll tell you in your ear what you can do next, because I've done it before.
Boom.
But I'm not gonna tell them. I'm gonna tell
One question, we have to wrap it up.
On the condition use of property, it was made very clear by Myra Uribe that it must have community consensus. So that is a condition that I hope you see tonight, is not met. I have missed some of the meeting because there were people lined up and couldn't get in. And so I know you work for us and I appreciate your efforts, I really do. Please hear our voice, please.
Probably double or triple this room, probably triple this room, Shirley. And thank you both, and Patty, for being here tonight. We respect you immensely for showing up to a crowd that's going to be a bit contentious, and I think you expected that.
Yeah.
Speaking of the council, what did you not understand that Commissioners Ortiz and Gray did understand about not building the shelter in that location? What are the differences?
It wasn't the shelter
opinions?
that they were more concerned about, because that was part of a larger situation, I want to say agreement.
Mhm.
They were mad about, remember when we had to annex all that stuff out of Deseret Ranch area? That's what they were upset about. They did not support not doing, they wanted to do the annexation. I actually voted against doing the annexation. I thought that should have stayed in Orange County. So but that was part of that larger agreement.
Will you please, going forward, err to the side of our safety? I grew up in Delaney Park, Lakeville, Wadeview Park in the 70s. Some of us remember what it was like back then. It was horrible. It was not a place to be. We've worked all these years so hard to build our neighborhoods back, to build our neighborhoods up. I'm proud of where I live. I'm a third generation Orlandoan. I want to retain that. Putting that shelter there at that location, it's just not the right fit. It could be served in so many better ways. I've heard 3 or 4 examples. A senior center, a women and children only center. We're not against that. We're just against the incarcerated, the drug addicted, the mentally ill running free during their waking hours. So please, let us see you understand.
And I just wanted to say one thing too, that shelters can work. We had the women's shelter right next to Lake Yola Heights.
Yeah.
It was right, no, it was right, you can shake your head, but it's true. The women's shelter was right in Lake Yola Heights, and it was never a problem. Okay? The women, unfortunately, I actually was upset when they sold the land. It's now a storage facility.
Right.
I was upset because I thought it worked well. It was Women's Residential Community Center, and I had friends that did brief stays there. I thought it was a very valuable resource. So not all shelters are, but I think
Bingo.
But I think to your point though, they had very, that shelter was, those ladies ran a tight ship.
Yes.
Yeah.
They really did.
They did.
So.
But they traded what worked for something they don't.
Okay. So anyway, y'all, I'm exhausted and I'm hungry.
We are as well.
All right, so.
I know, Rob, you had something, and then Slade, you had something, we'll call it.
Here.
There you go. Slade, you had something?
Real quickly, if I may, again, thank you for coming. But first is a question, then a brief comment. There's been a lot of talk about the new Florida statute banning camping. The commissioners, the city ordinance has been on the books since 1981, has it not? 43, 52? Yeah, there's still a city ordinance been on the books for decades banning camping on the streets. So it's not some new bad guys in Tallahassee. And in fact, the city went all the way to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals to condemn that in the Joel case. That's correct. So this is not something new that's created a new crisis. That's been on the books for a long time. And then lastly, take 1 second. I'd like to read a statement that was filed with the United States Supreme Court to support the grants pass opinion, which has also been cited as something that caused this crisis. The sad fact is thousands of persons experiencing homelessness sleep on city streets in sleeping bags, tents, and makeshift structures. Many of them refuse offers of service and shelter. There's a lot of research that say a lot of these folks are going to refuse the shelter, no matter how nice. And by the way, this is an amicus brief filed by the mayor of the city of San Francisco and the city of San Francisco. They supported the Supreme Court decision to ban street camping. So, and lastly, Governor Newsom, God bless him, 20 years ago he announced we're gonna end homelessness in 10 years. $24 million later, go to San Francisco.
Yes. All right, we have.
Thank you.
Please, not quick, they have their hands up. Please, someone needs to walk. Please.
I was born and raised here and live in the same house that I came home from the hospital to, which is across from Boone High School. And I worked at Lake Eola Farmers Market for 17 years. And every single Sunday, there was a problem with some homeless person there. We got accosted, we got robbed, and they were trespassed out of the park. And 300 people down here, it's absolutely terrible. And what about all the doctor's offices that are so close to there, that are all up in arms about this? They don't want their places broken into by these people.
Robin, you have
I have lived at my house here for 24 years, and just like everybody else, I've seen so many great things happen in our community. I love our community very much, and I applaud everybody for everything that they're doing to make it a better place. When you talk about the feasibility study for the building, and I agree with pretty much everything that's been said here, it's not the right fit for this kind of thing. But I have a couple of questions with that feasibility study. Do any of these people, are they expected to have automobiles? None. Nobody there is expected to have an automobile.
Expected? No.
No, but do you anticipate? And maybe that's the word.
Some might, yes.
Okay, parking, that's one issue. Originally you said it was women and children, but now, no, when you originally started speaking, you did say women and children, you did.
Yeah.
You did my mistake, you did say women and children. It's okay, because there's no shelters, I understand, because later you corrected it. So my question had been about the women and children. What about the railroad tracks? Somebody else talked about Orange Avenue. Somebody else talked about the train station. All those being in close proximity for trafficking. So now you're saying, or now in the conversation, you went back, it's men. So it is men.
Men and women.
Okay, men and women.
So 330 formerly incarcerated people in the work release program who were pedestrians from that site primarily.
And I lived
Most of
here
them
when
did
that
not
was an active facility.
Yeah.
People left, they went to work, they came back, and they were checked in. So if people don't have transportation, how are they going to a job? One of my questions had been, how long are they going to be able to stay? That was buried. So that's not really a positive thing either, I don't think. But then when you talk about the rehab of the facility that's been sitting there vacant, so sound barriers, people build communities and they are required, let's just say 100 units. Let's just say 100 units, because if there's 300 people, which I know that's not necessarily the number, and you figure it's a couple or what have you, then, so that's 2 persons per 300, that's 150 units. So if you built a 150 unit apartment complex, you would be required to have sidewalks, to have noise barriers. You would be required to participate in schools, the ingress and egress, perhaps a traffic signal. All kinds of things would come into play. Are those things being considered? What is going to be the effect on the school? And I think this young lady said it very well. It sounds really great, but the required resources that are going to be necessary for the long haul, there's no funding for that. We aren't able to care for the situation now without that facility. So I'm 100% on board with this is not the right place. And I will also say that I've done a lot of work with the Covenant House out on State Road 50. They're running a much better situation out there now. So, it's out, it's away. Well, it may be closed now, but it was a much better situation in an area that didn't back up to houses.
Where we go. Thank you, everybody. Everybody, real quick, first and foremost, thank you all for coming. Your voice is heard. I'm sure we got everything.